Well, thanks to Giles Brander for that really lovely piece, and I never thought that cardigans could be so exciting. Have you ever gone for that job you really wanted and been rejected? How about asking someone out for a date and also being rejected? Perhaps you've been rejected again and again and again. My next guest is the author of a best-selling book, Reject, the Feeling of Rejection. Not only is it a best-selling book, it certainly hasn't been rejected by anyone on Amazon, but it's also currently the highest rating book on the entire site. So please welcome Nicky Kriel. So Nicky, you've obviously done phenomenally well with this book, so what would qualify you to talk about rejection?
Well, I could say that I've been rejected a lot, but I think rejection is something that everybody experiences. I'm a master NLP practitioner, and I've worked with people in terms of overcoming rejection. It's not rejection that's the issue, it's actually getting over the feeling of rejection. It's if you let rejection stop you from doing things.
That sounds fascinating. Have you collected many stories of rejection when putting this book together?
Yes, I have. In fact, it's one of the things that everybody seems to have a story about, even people that you think have done phenomenally well. And one of my favourite rejection stories is actually by Susan Jeffer, who wrote Fear the Fear and Do It Anyway. I've read her 25-year edition, and she said this book nearly didn't happen. She said for years it actually lay in a drawer, forgotten about, because she'd had so many rejection letters about it. In fact, somebody said if Lady Di were cycling naked, handing out free copies of this book, nobody would read it. And yet it went on to be one of the top best-selling books in its time, and in fact it's become a phrase, and there's not many people who can say that they've actually developed a phrase in the English language.
That sounds great. Well, clearly you didn't have anyone cycling naked needed to sell this book. You mentioned NLP there. What is NLP?
NLP is neuro-linguistic programming, which is all about having the right mindset. So, for example, rejection is actually a feeling within you. It's not something that happens. Yes, people say no to you, or they say like you don't have a job, etc. The feeling of rejection is a feeling that we often take our childhood experiences, like every time we didn't get selected first for the football team, or in gym, whenever you didn't get selected until the last person, or anybody turned you down for a date. We take all of those and we mash them into one experience of rejection.
I'm pretty nervous already. So what advice would you give someone who's actually just thinking of all those experiences and feeling very negative, and they can't see that asking someone out on a date would be successful, or even if it's worth applying for another job?
Well, my top tip for rejection is you miss out on 100% of opportunities you don't go for. And if you remember that you cannot, if you don't go for an opportunity, you're just not going to get it. That is worth remembering. There's also a number of other things, like, you know, it depends on what it is, but you're no worse off by being rejected. I think we often think that if somebody rejects us, our life becomes worse. But in fact, if you ask somebody on that date and they say no, you didn't have a date before, you don't have a date afterwards, so your life's no worse. It may not be any better, but it's no worse.
Well, I can't particularly sympathise. Obviously, no one's ever said no on a dance I can understand the sentiment. So, what prompted you to actually write a whole book about this?
The reason I wrote the book was that it started off as a talk I gave for a networking group. And the talk, every time I did the talk, I was asked to do the talk at another networking group. People gathered around me and told me their stories each time I did the talk. And I found somebody a year afterwards, after the talk, saying that talk had a big impact on me, and I'm still using part of that. So every time I make a call, I'm actually using, there's one step which I say, it's an object, it's not you. So put it on the table, like put the proposal on the table. And I suggest that they put it on the table, and she said every time she was making a call, she was physically thinking of it there next to her rather than it was about her.
That's absolutely wonderful. But I guess some people might say there are thousands of self-help books out there nowadays, from The Secret to all sorts of other ones. So why would someone, and clearly many people already have, why should someone choose your book out of all those other books?
Well, surprisingly, there are not that many books on rejection per se. And
Were they rejected by the publishers?
There's a good chance that may have happened. But rejection is something that you face, or it might be a period of time where you're going for it. For example, if you're applying for jobs, you suddenly might be facing a feeling of rejection, which you might not have in other aspects. So every now and then you might need a little bit of help getting you over a period of rejection or feeling of rejection.
So have you got any quick tips? Say someone who's been rejected many times for a job interview, they go along, it's their 100th interview, they've been rejected for all of them, they're waiting to be interviewed and they're just becoming very panicky. Have you got any suggestions to help them think, I am going to get this job?
I think that basically you send out signals. If you expect to be rejected, you're more likely to get rejected. I think if you really want something, quite often we're faced with brick walls. And those brick walls are really there to test us, whether we want to do that, and if we want something badly enough. Because if we're put off by a brick wall, then we're obviously not determined enough. And the people who do auditions, who get knocked back hundreds and hundreds of times, who still go on to be, become stars.
So do you have any other plans after this book now?
I think there'll probably be another book about how to, yes, I'm sure that I will have another book, but at the moment it's quite exciting just to have the public acknowledgement of this.
Well, I hope the publishers don't reject your second book when it comes out for publishing. Thank you very much for joining me. And now I'd like to return to our next feature featuring Giles Brandreth on the wonders of corduroy.